Hi, I'm Nathaniel Stoner. In the community, I go by NS Brick Designs, and today I'm showing you our Battle of Sokovia collaboration from Avengers Age of Ultron. This has been in the works for about a year, ever since last Brick Fair Virginia in 2017, and we were planning it for this year, and we got all done within a few months of building because some of us were busy and we had a lot of stuff to get done. So it started out with it was going to be a 32 by 32 base plates, just two of them, and then it transferred to 12 48 by 48s.
How exactly does it go from that small to that big?
Well, originally it was going to be like three of us, and we were like, okay, we can fit a church. I was like, I can fit the church on a one base plate, and I started building a church. I was like, yeah, no. So we were like, okay, what do you need for the church? So I was like, I need 4 48 by 48s to do it justice, and then that's what determined the rest of it. So we were like, we can't just make it the church, we want to make it a collab, so we left room for lots of city building around it. So that's how it got so big after much deliberation.
Fantastic. So you would talk about your section, then we'll go down the line and have each collaborator talk about what they did.
Yeah, sure. Carter and I basically were some of the main organizers. We designed a lot of things like the road that then everybody continued on with. I did power lines that everybody used, and just little things like that. He came up with lampposts. So it was the two of us that kind of organized it. My specific section is the center, the dark tan square for the church. So it's the 4 48 by 48 section, and it has the church on it with the main battle scene, with the interior scene, and just random debris around it. The church was a very challenging thing to figure out how I wanted to build it, because it's not a rounded shape, it's round, and then it has all these parts that come off of it that make it a very peculiar shape that I would have to make it even bigger if I was going to do the thing correct. So I figured I would just basically take the center of the church, which is the core area, and use that. So it has just a main opening in the front so that everybody could see in. I wanted to maybe have a complete roof and hinge it, but that just wasn't practical. So I decided to go with the open concept, and we just have lots of Ultron drones and Avengers fighting with trying to get lots of good positioning with the figures for action. And most people point out the Quicksilver effect that I came up with. That was actually using cockpits I got right here at Brick Fair last year. So thanks to Brick Fair last year for this year's Sokovia collaboration. So that was my section of it.
Yeah. Great job. So we'll move down to Carter then.
Hi, I'm Carter Weinstock. I built the three base plates to the left of the church. Those three. My favorite part is probably my trolley. I'm usually a train and city builder, and so that's why I obviously did the majority of this. Not majority, but I did the biggest section of city. I love Easter eggs. I absolutely love them, and we have tons of Easter eggs. We've got a list over there. We've got Iron Legion drones. We've got Kevin Hinkle. We've got y'all up in the hotel interviewing us. It was just so much fun. I really feel like my building skill has kind of increased through this. As you can tell if you look at the building, some of them are less detailed, some of them are more detailed. But overall, it was just a blast, and yeah.
Yeah, I like John's showing right there. You mentioned I think you included us with a micro version of this build. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my idea originally, and then Nathaniel was like, "Oh, I built the figures." I was like, "All right, this is great. This is gonna be great. This may help us get an interview," and I guess maybe it did.
For the record, I didn't even notice we were there until we were already going to do the interview, so this is certainly worthy of an interview on its own.
Why, thank you.
Yes, but that is a cool detail.
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
Yeah, and your buildings are awesome. So are there any other town builders that you're inspired by as you've built over the years? Because there's tons of massive town layouts that you see at shows.
Oh my gosh, of course. The lugs that they have, these huge, amazing buildings. I'd always dreamed of doing something like that. Now, this isn't a huge entire town, but I think it's better, in my opinion, because you kind of get immersed into all the destruction, and you feel kind of like you're there with all of the detail that we've added. And I kind of like this better, in my personal opinion, and I still got to add a train, so that was great too.
Perfect. Well, then we'll move down to the next collaborator if you want to introduce yourself and take us through your section.
My name is Dominic Mango, or known on the internet as Psychobrick. I would say that I had the smallest parts to deal with this, but they do make the collab pop. So what I did is I did all of the Avengers logos on each of the corners. Nathaniel told me that, like, hey, you should probably get a design for the Avengers logos to kind of make it pop, like stand out. And I was like, okay, I can do that. So I made it like relatively small. And then also what I did was I made a Marvel Studios logo to kind of make it aware that, like, hey, this is a Marvel build. And then actually just recently I bought parts for I got red bricks and whatnot to make a 10 for on the 10 years of Marvel Studios. So I guess in a way, like this collab is kind of celebrating the 10 years of the Marvel Studios, Marvel Cinematic Universe, really. So.
And that brick-built lettering is not easy, so I'm always impressed when builders incorporate that. What were some of the trials you faced doing that?
Some of the things, like one of the things that was kind of tricky to figure out was the D. And as you can see there, I used kind of like the cheese slope method. So that turned out well, but I would say that was probably the trickiest part. And then also making sure that the letters in, like, say, Marvel weren't too thick, weren't too thin, because I had a lot of reference to the actual logo and whatnot. And then I also, before I wanted to have, like, the 10 logo, it's been 10 years. I just never got around to it, but then I got parts from Brick Fair, and I was like, hey, yeah, I can make a 10 now. So,
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you had some nice little extra added details that really added to the build, so thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
The next collaborator?
I'm Daniel Miller, also known as Chevy Lego Dude 77, and I did the 2 base plates in the back behind the church.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
So take us through some of the details in the buildings there.
Right. My favorite building is the sand green one because that's one of my favorite Lego colors. I had a lot of fun building that. One of the most difficult things I found building this was getting all the detail into the buildings, making them look really good. But I think I did a decent job at doing that.
Yeah, I think there's even like a guy hanging off the side of the building on the sand green one there.
That was actually my sister's idea. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, great work there. So definitely, even the building on the end there is nice as well. Talk about the one with kind of the flowers in it.
Oh yeah, that one I actually didn't spend that much time on, but it ended up looking really nice. So the roof was actually fairly boring at the beginning, but I added a lot of detail, including the air conditioner, where I went really crazy on the greebling there. Yeah.
Excellent work. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, my name's Robbie Herberger, or Rob's World War II Bricks on Flickr, and I did the upper right-hand corner of the build. And so I actually joined this collab a little later. They were like, someone dropped out last minute, and so they asked me, Nathaniel asked me, hey, can you join and do this section? And I'm like, sure. And so, I got in, and so I built the 3 buildings there. They're, I'm normally a World War II builder and stuff, and so I was trying to figure out, okay, I need to make a little more modern buildings and more like World War II of like France and stuff like that, and Belgium buildings. So I decided to like modernize a little bit the buildings that I've had based off of like World War II and stuff. And so I was able to make some really nice buildings that I could now go back home and use for World War II, but still also like fit really nice into Sokovia.
Yeah, those are some great, and you even did the nice kind of rundown stuff there with the holes in the buildings and everything.
Yeah, that was actually like, I was thinking about that, of having like an Ultron drone like looked like it had been thrown into the building and stuff by like Hulk or something.
Very impressive. So then, Joseph, finish out with your section.
Hey Handlins, I'm Joe Zawada. I'm the final builder as part of this collaboration. I'm actually not a big fan of Avengers.
No, bad thing to say.
But see, I've never watched the movie, but I like my friends.
Yeah.
So they asked me to be a part of it, and I was really happy to be in it. I think that me really loving the display as a whole is a testament of the talent that went into it.
Yeah.
As I don't have the added benefit of knowing the IP. But onto my build, I had a lot of fun with it. I came on a little bit later. I'm mainly a castle builder, so it was fun to try to build a modern building this time. So I went for a garage and an apartment building. Overall, I tried to maintain the techniques that I've grown comfortable with, but adapt them slightly to be more suited for modern architecture. Overall, it was a lot of fun. I had a great time. The guys are all great. And I'm actually considering seeing the movie, which I think is a success.
They've worked on you for that.
Yeah.
Now, are there interiors in these buildings at all?
There are not interiors. There's a partial interior for the garage because the door is slightly ajar. So I wanted anyone who came by to be able to get a peek and kind of see. There's like tools laying in there, and I think like some exhaust pipes or something. But yeah, that's the only interiors that I had.
And then I love is that like a green screen suit man there being shot in front?
Yes, it is. Nathaniel, he's a really big fan of Avengers. So he wanted to add some elements of realism, and that's how the Ultron sentries were filmed, whereas green screen with the, I guess the images added on there. So to add a little bit more fun for the convention, we added little Easter eggs and little fun stuff like that. We have Mickey directing him over there as well, because our fun Disney overlords have consumed all of media. Avengers is their most recent acquisition, or one of their more recent acquisitions, so good for them, making that money.
Always buying up more stuff. Well, I think that's a great addition to it, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So then if we get back to Nathaniel here, talk about kind of the collab in general some more. How did this work with all 6 of you guys communicating back and forth and figuring out who was doing what and how it would come together?
Yeah, I forgot to mention this at first. We're a new LEGO user group. We're called SaltyLUG. We have a little flyer there. We're on Facebook, Flickr, and Instagram. We're not like a recognized LEGO user group by the LEGO group yet. We're working towards that. Right now we just focus on building together and having fun. We're all online, so it was pretty easy because we were all online communication already, so we were able to send pictures back and forth through Discord, which is what we use primarily. So it was a lot of updating each other with what we're working on, what colors work, what texturing works, and all that. We have a map here that I brought to print out. That this was the original map for the collab when we decided, okay, this is what we need for the church area, so then what can we add to make it look more like a complete city? So then we figured out and color-coded who's doing what, and then little things like that. So that was part of the planning process. For the only other part about the plan process that we have here is a QR code. If viewers are able to scan it through the screen, it's a build log, so you can see how everybody's sections came together. Every whip picture I got, we just put it there in the compilation to see how it all came together in physical form anyway. So it was just a lot of online messaging back and forth. Carter and I, again, we were mostly the main organizers, and we live locally near each other, so we were able to, or I was able to go to his house a couple times, and we actually worked on some of his stuff there and just planned things out that way so that everybody was able to understand what we were doing for the layout.
Yeah, and the whole thing turned out fantastic. I'm so glad you guys were able to work so well together. It really comes together very nicely. You can't even tell that it was done in a bunch of different sections like that. So it's really great. Thanks so much for chatting with me, everyone. Appreciate it. Good stuff.
Thank you, guys.
My name is Brandon Walker. I'm Taylor Walker.
Okay, and you guys have some awesome superhero builds. We'll start with the hammer here. You want to talk about this?
Yeah, no, this was just a project last year during BrickCon. We were just thinking of new things to work on, and so he started with this gel. I'm like, well, I want something to go with that, so we started working on the hammer. It was pretty interesting to kind of work on, how to design it. I really want to make sure it had some of the details, like the beveled edges, and some of those curves that, can kind of be hard to replicate in LEGO. We built it digitally on LEGO Digital Designer. So that was kind of interesting. It's sometimes hard to make sure things hold together really well. And so we made sure that it was really sturdy. We put a support through the handle, and so it holds together really well, and I'm happy with the way it turned out.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, and it's interesting that you did that on Digital Designer, because I know a lot of people just kind of like sitting down with the physical brick. Was there a particular reason why you did that?
We don't have a lot of LEGO at home, just poor college students, that's what we have.
Right. That's understandable, and I know that's why. What are the biggest difficulties with that? Because a lot of people might not be familiar with designing on that.
You can't tell whether it'll stay together in real life. You don't know what kind of factors the way gravity's going to affect it. So it can be hard to build something that stays, sturdy in the real brick.
Right. That's understandable. Well, great build there. And then over here, what do we have here?
Captain America's shield. I started working on this one last year at BrickCon as well. I also built the whole thing on LEGO Digital Designer as well. Same kind of challenges. Don't know if it's going to fall apart as soon as you build it in real life, but it turned out to be really, really structurally sound. Only fragile bits are the ones around the edges.
Okay.
But it's heavy.
So what type of techniques? It looks like it was a lot of just like plate stacking type of stuff going on here?
Yeah, it's pretty much all plates except for a little bit of technique on the arm braces back here to hold it on. But yeah, my process is kind of like I used paint to kind of track how each MSN paint to figure out what the circle would look like if each of these studs were a pixel. So that was kind of my process.
So did you say this is pretty strong? It holds together pretty decent?
Yeah, it's pretty strong. It's not gonna fall off if you bat it. It's just the bits around the edges that fall off. So.
Yeah. Well, those are awesome, and I appreciate you guys showing those to us. Thank you.
I'm John Boozer, and this is the Milano from the Guardians of the Galaxy. I hope I don't have to tell a lot of people that, because plenty of people recognize it. She was originally thought of for a Ship-Timber build, Ship-Timber of 2014. And a lot of people know by now, Ship-Timber is 100 studs long, and she's more like 200 studs long, or wide rather. And, well, she's too big for September, so she ended up being, when September ended, she sat on my table for a long time until April rolls around, and I got her ready for a different show. And this is where she got to. Now, I plan on coming back to her at some point and working on her some more, but I'm going to wait until I have a backup ship before I do that.
Okay.
I got a plan for this year, this September, and every even year I take on something too big, so this is going to be an odd year. So I think I'm going to do something manageable this time around. I started working on this thing, and basically I went to Toys R Us on my little toy to use as a model, and I built the bridge first, or built the cockpit around the characters to get a feel for what the scale was, and then I could take the cockpit that I built, compare it to the cockpit on the model, and said, okay, what's my scale?
Yeah.
And so I was trying to build this thing as close to scale as I could, minifig scale, because you know how tiny those little official sets are. And so it's up for debate. Some people say it's a little too big. But hopefully I got it close enough. She still has some work that I want to do, like I said. I always meant to put a full interior inside, and it doesn't have that yet. So that you can lift it up and check out the inside. I studied that thing. The aggravating thing was I started building this thing a month after the movie came out, so it was still in theaters, so I couldn't just keep watching the DVD over and over again. I had to, I was mostly working off that toy that I had. The bridge, there was enough information online. In fact, there was even a video of Chris Pratt walking us around the set, showing us different stuff. And so I could see not only the bridge, but I could see the interior of the ship. And I studied that thing and studied that thing and studied that thing. There's still bits of the bridge, details of the bridge that I wish I have in there. And some other details that either I ran out of time or couldn't figure out how to build. Hopefully this is not the finished project. Hopefully this keeps getting refined and, pimped out. And like I said, I want to build a backup ship first. I'm thinking of bringing 2 ships next year. My plan for this year, hopefully both of them will fit in the car. But that's the gist of it.
That's really, really impressive. It's such a massive build. It's really cool. So you've got a lot of interesting angles here with the yellow and blue bricks and the gray and all of those colors combining. What's some of the pieces you used to achieve that?
So a lot of what I'm doing is I've got the Technic frame underneath, and I build a wall of bricks and use Technic pins to click them into place. And I've got tricks that I use to connect a wall of bricks to a wall of bricks, and I can connect it pretty much any angle I want. In fact, I have one wall 1 connected to wall 2, connected to wall 3, and wall 1 and wall 3 are actually right angles to each other, even though wall 1 and wall 3 aren't actually connected to each other. I had to stop and do the math and say, okay, exactly where do I need the pins to fit to get these 2 angles to be right angles to each other? So that's what I got going on here and here and here. I've got sort of the same trick going on in here, but instead of Technic pins, since it studs up this time, it's turntables. So I've got 3 turntables here at just the right spot to get the angle I want. And in fact, this particular angle, I did it once, and the structure wasn't very sturdy. I needed to redo it. So I flipped the connections around, but wanted to get exactly the same, or close enough to the same angle. So I said, okay, where exactly do I need these pieces to get the right angle? So I did the math and got the angle that I was looking for. Another thing you see is I'm brick bending all over the place. I've got brick bending here in the front of the ship. I've got brick bending over here in the corner. I've got brick bending here for the cockpit. And I got brick bending a couple places under here. I could not build a ship without brick bending. Every single ship I have built, which right now is 3.5. Every single ship I built has some brick bending in there somewhere. The last ship I was building doesn't have a lot, but I just looked for an excuse to put some brick bending in there, and I said, okay, there's where the brick gets bent. This ship timber, I'm planning on using a lot of brick bending for the frame. A long time ago, a friend of mine got me distracted by castle builds, and I was obsessed with building round castle towers. And so I thought lots about different ways to build round stuff. With spaceships, I feel like I'm building bigger radius circles, so it's not as hard. If you look at the engine in the back, I've got a sort of pentagonal round engine shape. So all that circular stuff that I played with around with castles, I'm bringing it into play with the spaceships.
Yeah, that's very cool. I can see how much thought you had to put into all this to get all the angles and everything right. So that's really neat. What's this like to kind of transport around and set up at a show?
The top comes off so that I can reach the frame underneath, so I can pick it up and move it more easily. Once I take the wingtips off, it fits just perfectly in the Thunderbird trunk that I don't have anymore. I got a new car, and there's only one place in that car where this thing fits right, because it's like about, once you take the wingtips off, it's something like 4 feet wide, and fitting it fit just perfectly in the Thunderbird trunk, but fitting it inside the Ford Edge now, there's one spot where it fits. I tried transporting it once diagonally. That wasn't very good. Every time you hit the brakes, it tilted. Yeah. And, well, that kind of wrecked some of the supports, which in turn wrecked the back end of it, which in turn wrecked, when that collapsed, it wrecked the thing on the side. She still had some issues coming up here. Her shoulder joint basically separated, so one wing came off. Which sounds bad. Fortunately, I had pillows and blankets underneath the wing, so it could have been worse. The wing came off, and the stuff on the end, the hold on the wingtips, broke. But she wasn't that bad to fix when I got her here. There is one 3-long Technic pin that's now a 2-long Technic pin, and I haven't been able to fish her out because she's deeply embedded inside. That's going to be a job to fix that. But I have taken her now to 2 Lego conventions and 1 comic book convention. And this, I'm from South Carolina, so she traveled like 13 hours to get here. That's just travel time without any time for, well, lunch and stops and getting lost.
Okay, well that sounds very interesting. I'm glad you brought it out here because it's a great build and very recognizable from the movie. So it's really neat. Thanks for talking with me about it.
It's Einon, and this time I have a crazy thing, a completely crazy mock. It's the Hydra Ultra Heavy Tank. So I got the idea watching the American show, the American film, the Captain America, the Avengers, first Avenger. And so I saw that they had a tank. The Germans had a tank, but that tank didn't appear to be a German. It was so tall, so different. It wasn't a Tiger tank or something like that. So I saw an image of a tank like this, and I got the idea. What's the slogan of Hydra? They say if you cut one head, 2 more pop up. So then I got the idea. If I put replace the heads and put turrets instead. So there is the result. The tank has a total of 9 turrets. It has 2 Tiger 1 turrets on the front, 2 Panzer IV turrets, 2 flak towers with 37mm cannons, an E-75 turret here on the back, and a Sturmemil turret here, and a Panzer II turret just here, this tiny one, with red skull here. And the thing is that the turrets, they can all be 2 of them can be controlled. This one with a screw here, and this one here. And there's the access for the driver here on the front. Oh, it broke up. And let's see. There's also a head turret here. I'm a huge fan of World of Tanks, so I just got the idea. Let's just put the most important turrets here, and there's some sponsons here on the side, just to keep it as silly as possible. It even has a mast, like a ship, and the flag, it appears like a pirate ship.
So you just went all out with this build and as much as possible.
Just grab everything that looks silly and combine them at the same time. And it can move. Well, I don't know how much it weighs. It must be around 5 kilos or something. It's really heavy, but it moves quite well. Oh. The only problem is that this surface is not the best. Let's go for another run. It keeps losing pieces.
But it can move, which is impressive. That's very cool.
Yeah. If it was like if I had a more smooth surface, it would go better. But I just had so many parts at home. Dark red, dark tan. I just combined them, and this is the result. If it even has a rocket launcher over there, just go full insane. It doesn't make any sense, but.
But it's really cool still.
It's the new toy of Red Skull to fight Captain America.
There you go. Well, that's really impressive. Does the whole moving under there? What's that? How's that kind of set up? Is it pretty structurally strong, even with the moving?
The structure is really strong. It has 2 XL motors. I was wondering if the motors were strong enough for this thing, and they actually move quite well without any problem. In a better surface, it turns to the right and left without any problem. But in here, it's not the best one. Let me just put it back. Keep losing pieces.
There you go. That's very impressive, and I think it's a really cool idea to just make as many turrets on there as possible in a massive tank.
Total of 9. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for showing that to us. I appreciate it.
The backstory is the last couple of years, all of these superhero sets have got some form of a jet or something other in the flying apparatus. So the joke was to shoehorn Hawkeye under the bus further like he gets in the comic world and make him the airport parking valet attendants at the luxury superheroes private airport. Then so that was our concept for Rose City Comic Con, which was 3 weekends ago. Yeah. So then what happened was Civil War came out. We're like, okay, we're going to repurpose and do the fight scene from Civil War at Leipzig Airport in Germany. So basically I started kind of laying out some infrastructure and all of that. We started getting some stuff together, and then lug bulk issues and other bricklink order issues. You know, the normal builder stuff. I'm building under a crunch and a timeline.
Typical shenanigans.
Yes. So James built planes and terminal. I handled the runway and the flat infrastructure. I did another gentleman, Ben, who is not here, he did the whole tower and all the power functions hidden inside here. So it's all hidden in a way like that. I did the hangar, and we basically with most stock stuff. And then as we did Comic-Con, we just started sprinkling in more little bits here and there. Some of the Arrested Development people that will notice the Baloo stair car.
Yeah. What's really great about superheroes in general, and what we really like to do, is because we've got such a broad knowledge of pop culture and the superhero like mythology, is you can plug all these Easter eggs into it. And so like one of the most like validating things you get as a builder is when you've got someone coming around and they're like, wait a second, I know where that's from. Yeah. And I may be incriminating all 3 of us when I say that we may have procured some illegal downloads prior to, because we may have seen
footage for the purposes of
merely research purposes only. Okay, we did not profit.
Creating an iconic situation in the pop culture-esque world.
For a good cause. For a good cause.
Yeah. Although we can neither confirm or deny any of these allegations.
And exactly. So we wanted to recreate some of the scenes as to the screen as possible. So that's why we wanted to be as movie accurate. And so it was for the greater good.
The good thing is doing a collab with other builders is you get to figure out how everybody does their different building styles. So that was one of the things. I mean, I live an hour away from both of these guys, so there was a lot of Google Hangouts calls and a lot of FaceTiming to say, hey, I'm doing this. Is your build going to fit into this little space? And so there was a lot of coordination on the back end involved on all of that stuff. So,
I love it. I love it.
And can you talk a little bit more about the road technique and how you kind of laid all this out?
Skid marks. Yeah, the skid marks, yeah. So basically, what I learned initially was, hey, I have a long bed pickup truck, so I'll build it right up to 90 base plates. Well, I have a modern long bed. So So it's actually like 8 base plates and a couple of studs. So after Rose City Comic Con, I figured out I had to split it because it comes into 2 pieces. But I had to split it even further down to actually get it up here this year. So it's the basic underneath here. So it's 2 studs underneath on top of a base plate. And then it's just brick. It's basically the brick-built roads like the normal standard pin lug has done. But then I've taken out the sidewalks and dropped it a plate, so it's completely flush all the way across.
Very nice.
So,
And the skid marks sort of decreased blade usage, I'm sure.
It did. So I chewed through all of my 1x8 brick that I have lug bulked for 2 years. I have more coming in this year's lug bulk for doing our train lug stuff. But I actually looked into what airport was used because they filmed a lot on location, and then they did a lot of the backlot, like superhero fight scene stuff, green screen in Hollywood. So I actually went to the airport. So it is 26 left heavy at the airport is one of the actual runway numbers. So there was some research looking at it, and I was like, oh, hey, I can do skid marks and all this other stuff. But yeah, I have, like a big giant gallon Ziploc bag full of 1x2 and just black. So yeah, there's a lot of like, oh, hey, we'll figure it out and make it work and all of that. Then it was the, hey, how does an active runway work with it? You've got a big jumbo jet parked on it here. So there's all this, a couple pods come like your lights are. And I was like, we did what we could, Most of it's we're marketing on the level of the kids of going, well, hey, I saw that. I saw this movie and all this other stuff.
This is my favorite part, in all honesty, because this is the iconic scene from that movie. It's the showdown. The Avengers, they've split. They're going different ways. It's the Civil War, and that's them just running after each other on the runway after another. So I think this is my favorite part. I think it captured it really well.
And the giant Ant-Man, I love that too, that you got the big size as well as the small size there. That's awesome.
If you look further up on the gangway, the other one's there. So what we've done is we've tried to capture this portion of it, and then that portion. Then I've got to find Cap and Spider-Man because they're actually fighting with Ant-Man over here, and then in the far tail end corner is when Rhodey hits the crater. So that's over. Yeah, I just felt that too. But I mean, so Deadpool wasn't in the movie, so we got that up there. What were Thor and Hulk doing the whole time? So we've got that. So there's an inside joke with the whole sausage thing, so we shoehorn that into everything we can. But then you've got He's No Good to Me Dead, Boba Fett loading Han up into a Lego crate to ship off somewhere. So yeah.
My 2 favorite parts of this whole build, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, the design of the hangar and the little jet bridge.
Oh, yes. So James did the gangway and all that. I did the hangar. So.
How was designing the gangway?
Oh, the gangway was, I pulled it from a couple different sources. Just tried to find something that was kind of captured the look of that corrugated flexible piece that gets right up to the entryway on the airplane, and then to try to get the curve in there, and then they typically extend or on kind of wheels as well. So yeah, I think it turned out pretty well. It was. I don't have a lot of brick at home, but I just tried to capture it as easily as I could.
Awesome. Now, I want to continue on this trend of pointing out favorite things and favorite parts of the build. What was your favorite part of the build?
I would say my favorite part of the build was the tug over there on the far end of the...
Oh, okay.
I enjoyed making support vehicles for the airport.
That's awesome. Where do you get your design inspiration from?
I just look for pictures online, do a Google image search for the thing I want to build, and go off of it.
My name's John Bearden, and this is my Lego Helicarrier build. With this one, I kind of wanted to build something kind of like I used to play with G.I. Joe, and they had a helicarrier, or they had a big aircraft carrier for that one. I always wanted to have something like that for my Legos too. So this is built to kind of play scale values. So I can get all my minifigures on there and do little dioramas with them, having different fight scenes and stuff like that. My main thing is with this Lego set, I wanted to have something for it to land on and kind of fit in with. So that's kind of what I focus building everything else around to find the scale for it.
Yeah, very cool. One thing that catches your eye right off is the moving fan blades. So talk about kind of what the structure's like in there that keeps that all running.
So once we kind of pull all this off, these guys get kind of heavy because brick just always gets heavy. So there's a lot of base plates that kind of pull it over and stretch the whole thing together underneath the seams. There's actually a lot of detail on the inside. You can see a little bit of it kind of lit up here. But on the inside, there's a full bay area down here with vehicles, some of the Iron Man figures you can see on the back end here. So there's a lot of detail on the inside that kind of gets lost once it's all covered up. But yeah, keeping those base plates to pull everything together for these heavy fan blades. And then it's actually running off of 4 different motors. They're all going to one battery pack. And right now that's getting a little bit drained. So I'm probably going to add another battery to that and may actually turn this over into one of the regulators that actually has power going into it so I can kind of control the speed and stuff like that. Because I'd really like to to go ahead and get Iron Man on one of the fan blades as well, and then slow it down a little bit so people can see him spinning it around.
Yeah, that'd be very cool. So I like what you did with this kind of Lego with their official kit. Went small and micro, but you went bigger so you could have like the play value and things like that.
Yeah, and I started looking at it when I was designing it out, and of course building it to full minifigure scale would have been crazy. So then I thought, Lego does a lot of play scale values to where they shrink things down and try to hit details and highlights of what you kind of see from the movies, why you want to rebuild that kind of scene. And so that's what I wanted to do on this one. And like I said, I kind of started with this one, like I really want somewhere for this jet to land, basically. I want the Quinjet to land somewhere on it. So I thought, here's, it's an aircraft carrier, so you have your kind of landing strip up here. You have a bay area for other ships. And these are also Lego set ones as well, and they're scaled to the perfect size to fit on that landing strip to make it look like there's several jets kind of lined up, some more back here in the bay and things like that. And then it still gives me plenty of room with all the exposed studs here on the side to do little action scenes or things like that and just get a lot of the Marvel figures on there.
Sure. How strong is this build when you kind of move it around to shows and things?
So the underneath part is all ship. It's all ship hull. You can pick the whole thing up together. You could probably lift it all the way up and just kind of do this with it. All the top pieces are all base plates. So they're just base plates kind of laid on top and barely connected to it. So they kind of just come off very easily, so you can kind of take it apart, get to the inside, or put it all back together. But the under part of it is all one big unit. It is all very sturdy. In fact, probably next iteration on this, I'm going to go for kind of the New York skyline and actually build this up on top of 2 skyscrapers to have it up in the air and kind of have more of my Marvel scene down below.
Yeah, that'll be really awesome. Well, I think it turned out great, and it looks like we just caught it before the motor stopped here.
I think you got it right as I ran out of battery power on this one. We'll definitely have to work on that torque in those engines.
I'm Dan Parker, artist from the Seattle-Tacoma area, and we brought some mega figure superheroes with us today. We've got 15 heroes here representing a lot of the Avengers line. There's a couple we haven't done yet, but I'll take you through a tour of the figures. Up front, starting on the right in front of me, we've got Thor. We've got Vision next to him. Down in front, we've got Ant-Man. Of course, Ant-Man is a set. We had to include a set. It's just too cool. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to build a Wasp to go with Ant-Man. She's more slender, more curvy. We gave Ant-Man some ants, so we dressed him up a little bit.
Yeah, there you go.
They are, of course, right in front of Hawkeye. And Hawkeye was built for last weekend's Emerald City Comic-Con. Of course, Jeremy Renner, in the recent movies. And he was at the show, so we had to do a Hawkeye. Next to Hawkeye, also at Emerald City Comic-Con, and well, not here, at Bricks Cascade, is Stan Lee. We've got a model of Stan Lee with a signed plaque right in front. That was really cool. At the show a couple of years ago, we had taken a lot of time and effort to build Stan Lee. People saw it standing in the autograph line, and they actually parted the line and let us walk right up to the front with our model of Stan Lee. Yeah. And Stan Lee saw it. It was like, guys, this is great. So he signed the plaque, and that was a real fun time. Next to Stan Lee, off his right side, going left there, we have Deadpool. Of course, not a true Avenger, but Deadpool, I guess you could drop him in just about anywhere.
Still a much-loved character there.
That's right, he certainly is. And I get a lot of questions from some people, why the taco bag? Well, chimichanga was too long to put on a bag, so we gave him a taco bag. Deadpool also got a Green Lantern, and I'm going to leave it to everybody to figure out why Deadpool has a Green Lantern with him. Only Deadpool. Behind Deadpool is a figure in the display that not a lot of people recognize on first take. That is Agent Coulson. The giveaways are the atomic gun he's got, I forget the real name of it, but his tie, his Bluetooth headpiece, and also his authentic blood-spattered Captain America trading cards. That's usually the giveaway for people that have seen the movies. So, going to the right there, we've got Spider-Man. A lot of work in the chest there to get that spider symbol right. But Spidey, one of my favorite characters, and I put him right behind Stan Lee because I've heard Stan Lee say that was his most beloved creation was Spider-Man. And Peter Parker and I share a last name, so what can I say? We've got Nick Fury next to Spider-Man. Of course, we gave him the Tesseract Cube. Other than that, it was going to be, give him another big old gun. But the cube, the cube was good. So next to him, another recent creation is Black Widow. And Black Widow sports a pair of 9mm Glocks and a pretty fancy belt. She also had some additional work on her uniform there up front. I took great pains to make sure that uniform she was wearing was just perfect. Next to Black Widow, we have Captain America, and he was actually the first one in this whole series of mega figures that we made. And he has 3 stars on his uniform, of course, chest, shield, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around the figure to show the back shield, and just to try different brick building techniques, all 3 stars are built differently. So I could just, it was extra time to play, I guess you could say. So there he is. He's ready to go. Cap, leader of the Avengers. Behind Captain America, we have Doctor Strange. And Doctor Strange was the last one built for the display. Also the most technically challenging. The belt hanging down, which is snotted in. We've got bands on his arm. He's got the Eye of Agamotto in his chest. Of course, we refer to it in our shop as the Eye of Tomato. But the cloak that pins right in front, the cowl, the extra work in the hair and the temples, got the white there. The cloak is asymmetrical. It's actually blowing up a bit on the right side. That cloak had a life of its own, so we wanted to embody that in the figure. The hardest one to do, definitely, out of all the figures. Next to Doctor Strange, we've got Hulk. And there's been a couple different versions of Hulk. It's always a guess when you're doing this what you should go with. We gave him tan pants in this one, and certainly a bit of an angry look there, and some big abs, big pecs. He's a little bit oversized based on the other figures, but he's ready to go. Hulk happy.
There you go.
Hulk happy, yeah. The last figure in the display is Iron Man. And he is raised up on some unique containers. Does anybody out there remember the Xbox or X-Pod, rather? X-Pod containers. So those containers in that light blue, same color as the energy embedded in his chest, the energy module, worked really well for those jets under his feet. He's got also some discs in his hands. Same as his chest. Again, those power gloves, power gauntlets he wears. So so there you have 15 figures. Well, but wait, there's more. Going into the show, we were only going to build 2 figures, but it ended up being 7 that we built to round out our Avengers things. And with only 5 days before the show, oh, what the heck? Let's build a backboard. So
why not?
Why not, indeed. So based on the Marvel lead-in that you see in all the movies, we designed a little bit of a custom backboard. It wasn't quite ever this exact one in any of the movies, but we designed this Marvel backboard. You've got Hulk as a mosaic behind the Marvel brand name there, and then you've got another classic frame of Captain America actually punching a Second World War II villain. And we'll leave that for people to guess. Initials were AH. Behind the backboard, or next to the backboard, we've got the Infinity Gauntlet. What Avengers arc scenario would be complete without the Infinity Gauntlet? So we've got that with a fair number of the Infinity Stones collected already. Look out, world.
There you go.
What you can't see in the display is that the backboard is being held up by Lego ZNAP. And I've got hordes of Lego ZNAP. Not only is it great for bridges and towers, it's great for scaffolding and holding up Marvel backboards. And there's a bit of a curve in that backboard. We really went stylish with that.
Perfect.
So, there you have it. There you have it, guys.
Yeah, these are so impressive. So what's the basic structure like in each of these? Do you build just from the ground up, or how does that usually work with these?
Yeah, being that I have a couple people helping me, we actually have a plain yellow figure in our shop. And once we do a pencil sketch on paper and we decide the composition, we usually give the legs to a very beginning builder, the arms to kind of the next level up, the head comes after that in terms of complexity. Mask, maybe hair will be, there's the different hairstyles, the goggles or glasses they wear, and the chest and any other accoutrements are typically the hardest to do, and I might keep that myself or give that to one of my top guys working with me. I always try to steal the fun bits for myself, like Hawkeye's bow. That actually flexes when you pull on the string. And yeah, it's a fun go. Figures typically take 2 to 3 days each. They're mostly hollow. No reason to make them solid. The arms are solid. The legs completely hollow. Chest hollow. Often it is a bit of a trick because you've got to embed in that extra detail. You've got to turn pieces sideways. Studs not on top, so there's a fair amount of snot building in them. The heads are hollow. Of course, these are all unglued, even though I do glue a lot of other projects, but don't drop any one of these, please. But they've been to a bunch of shows, at least this Captain America has been, along with Stan Lee. Those are the two oldest ones here. Iron Man, but the others have all just, every couple months we would have done one, or leading up to a big show like Bricks Cascade and Emerald City Comic Con last weekend. It was a chance to blast out more of them. So.
Yeah, well, that's really great. I appreciate you taking the time to show us through all the builds here. I think they turned out really awesome. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, guys. Great show.
My name is Alan T. Hickmon, and I'm here at Brick World Chicago, and I went ahead and brought up my Captain America Civil War piece that I actually made for the opening of the movie. I wanted to bring it up here to see how it would, do against other competition. This is actually probably one of the biggest mosaics that I punched out this year. This one is about 5.5 feet tall by close to 7 feet wide. So there's a lot of individual brick in there. When I kind of calculated what I used, there's about 247,000 pieces in it. Basically just looked at a picture of a poster and then implemented some other works into it, and I just went at it. The thing is about this one is all off the top of my head. I don't really use a program, while doing mosaics. So I just basically just draw with the Lego, and then I implement the colors in that I think that'll work best to capture the eye. This piece I debuted at Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City. That's where I'm from. So once I displayed, they had me do this one so everyone could see the piece that I did depicting for the movie. The movie came out May 6th, and the Planet Comic-Con was May 20th to the 22nd. So that gave me a little time to prepare to take it to that event so people could get a chance to enjoy my work. What's really crazy about this one is that if you use your phone, it will actually try to tag the actual people from my mosaic. So that kind of shows you that I did an okay job on it.
I'm Evan Bordessa. I am an AFOL from Hawaii, one of the very few who I think is part of the community. But yeah, Brick World is the event that I try to come to every year just because I know so many people that come to this event, and I've grown very close with a lot of them and have enjoyed spending time with them here. But as I fly 2,500 miles to get here, I can't bring too much. So this mock you see here, we've got Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which everybody likes. It's very, it's pretty posable. I'm a character builder for the majority of what I build. So getting a little bit of the character in there as well as posability and function is really important for me. And it's a lot of fun building with this guy because, like I said, he is fully posable, and I decided I wanted to do a little bit of a combo between him and the pistols because, it makes sense. He is actually 1-to-1 scale, so technically he's a replica of the character in the movie, and then also these pistols are in that same scale. So technically they work together in the same universe. Yeah, so the pistols don't have too many functions, but super simple. I wanted to kind of go for the sleek look that the guns have in the game, or in the game or the movie. And But I wanted to also keep the kind of the playability feature, so they're super solid. You can swoosh them around and pew them, and because that's the main part. They're super fun, and there's 2 of them, so it's a lot of fun to dual wield guns. We all know that. But yeah, no, these are the first builds I've done in about 6 months. I've been a little bit in a bit of a dark age just due to work and everything, but it's been really fun getting back into the community and kind of bringing something that's current and fun to the show, and just seeing the reactions of people on the guns and on Groot has been fantastic. The amount of, oh my gosh, that's Groot! Ah! just the freakouts has been fantastic, and that's why we all come anyway. So it's a good time, and I'm really glad to be able to kind of bring joy to people through Lego in that way.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So when you were working on both the guns and Groot here, were you kind of looking at like still images from the movie, or how did you kind of use source material for that?
What I actually did for Groot is I pulled up pictures of, I think it was Funko. It was just a little model that I based the reference and scale off of. I found a scale that went with this Groot model, and it was a life-size replica. So I pretty much built it off of that model. So it's very similar in size. So I was able to pretty much replicate the size and proportions on Groot as a build. I was able to replicate the scaling and size and everything on that. And then these ones, I essentially found a picture of Star-Lord online holding these, and then pulled up a picture of a Nerf gun variety of this, because I believe they make a bright orange and yellow one. And then I just kind of scaled it with the hand that was in the picture, just to kind of see how they would correlate to each other. And they kind of ended up working together in the same scale. And yeah, that's essentially my building process. I'm not one of those like super detailed people. It's just like, this looks good, I think we should go for this. Yeah. But yeah, no, they're fun. They're pretty solid, and you can play with them. That's the thing for me. Especially when you're building life size, it's really good to be able to move them around and have fun with them.
Yeah, definitely. And with Groot here, you mentioned how posable it was. What's some of the challenges of building a figure like that when all this stuff can move around?
Building a figure like this, like you said, it is a challenge, but I've found that when building full-size figures like this, we have the mixel joints that work for smaller models, like some of the character builds you see on the far side. But then for this one, I had to go for the Bionicle, the ball joints, just because they've got more friction and more clutch and everything. Because he's got kind of skinny little legs, so once you get up to the main torso and the arms, and the head is probably the heaviest part in the whole thing, it was really, really fragile and wobbly with the mixel joints as the ankles, which I should have used the big ball joints to start. But I had to go in and redesign the ankles just to make it stable so it could stand and I wouldn't have to worry about it falling over constantly.
Sounds good. Well, I think they turned out great, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
My name is Jared Rosenblitt. I'm from SaltyLUG. We're from Toronto, Canada, and I made a Spider-Man display. It's called, according to the title card, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 Times Square Battle. So this is based on not based on any particular scene, but more on a movie poster they released, where Spider-Man is actually fighting the 3 main villains of the movie. The Rhino over there, the Green Goblin, and Electro. The cool thing is the Rhino actually was definitely one of the big parts of the, well, not a huge part of the movie, but when I saw him in the trailers, I knew I had to do something with him. So I put him in there, even though he's not part of the actual fight scene in the movie. I wanted to put these 2 in there because, it sort of displays the whole movie and the whole Spider-Man universe, Spider-Man fighting his bad guys and stuff. I built a style actually, or at least I named it, called Cutaway, where it's just an excuse because I don't have enough bricks to complete the build, but what I try to do is I sort of show cutaways of different parts of the mock. So for example, here we only have half of a billboard here because it sort of cuts away. Otherwise I would have had to bought a lot more parts, and I don't think I can afford more. This already took up a lot of my collection. But so the way Cutaway works is I just sort of build bits and parts of a building and such so that you can get both an internal view as well as an external view. And I personally, for myself, I like how it just complements each other. Like you have the outside. This is actually based on a real building in Times Square. And then you have the inside, which I was allowed, because the inside is not, it's always changing, right? You can do whatever you want. I was allowed to play around a bit. So I've got, for example, Tony Stark right in there. And I've also got Lois Lane sort of hanging out, I guess, in her apartment. And up here we got Nick Fury. And then as a little joke, I actually put the old Spider-Man from the 2004 sets up in here, because I just thought it would be funny, to have the old Spider-Man watch the new Spider-Man fighting his battles. And Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a great strategy, like you were saying. If you don't have a lot of parts or low budget, you can't spend a ton of money on everything you build, then I think that's a great way to do it and still capture the buildings nicely.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's definitely an interesting style, and it definitely helps because it forces you to pack more detail into the things that are complete, just to sort of distract the viewer as they're watching. So, for example, here, you know, in order to really stop people from veering off the edge with their eyes, right, I put a mini scale of the Rhino and Electro, because there's, in Times Square, there's a CNN billboard that's constantly playing, yeah, so I put those in there sort of, you know, so for people to see and sort of, you know, try to figure out what it is. And, you know, I hid some characters, and so Deadpool, for example, is over there. I tried to hide a lot of characters in the mock as Easter eggs for people to find.
My name is Richard Glatter, and I built this shield and Hydra lenticular mosaic.
So, what is a lenticular mosaic?
A lenticular mosaic is a mosaic primarily made of cheese slopes, or you can do 45-degree slopes or other sloped pieces where you have two images in one mosaic.
Very cool, very cool. Now, this seems like a challenging thing to kind of plan for or design. What was your process like?
My process was to talk to Arthur Gujic, who he pretty much started this technique, and I talked with him and got a ton of advice from him on how to do this and how to make it look right. You have to do some weird things with math and scaling in order to get it to look right at the sides. That's why it looks a little bit oval in the middle, but from the sides it's very circular.
Interesting. And so we're gonna change locations to kind of take this into account. And yes, you are very correct with that. Very correct.
Yeah. It was a fun build. My fiance helped me build it. I did all of the pattern work where you actually see the image of the Hydra logo and the shield logo, and then she filled it all in for me.
Definitely. Now
I didn't go insane.
Yeah, that's a good call. Now, cheese slopes are a wonderful Lego element, but they are sometimes slightly hard to acquire. How did you get that many cheese slopes?
Well, that is definitely a challenge. There are 16,000 cheese slopes in there.
And that's a very easy number to calculate, I would assume, right?
Yeah, well, I used some software.
Yeah.
I used some software to help me design it, so I am able to tell you a number. And yes, it was hard to source them. I'm from Arkansas, so we don't have a Lego store. Our closest Lego store is 6 hours away.
Oklahoma City or something? Or?
No, Dallas.
Yeah, oh, Dallas. Really?
Yes. So I ended up going to Dallas for another trip and bought some pieces down there, and from the Pick-a-Brick wall, and ended up calling about 4 other Lego stores and ordering parts.
And they'll ship to you, right? Yeah. And they do that.
They do that. The hardest part to come across was actually the red cheese slopes, and that I ordered from the Czech Republic. It took 7 weeks for them to get here, and it was 6,000 red cheese slopes that I ordered.
And of course, some bricklaying seller in the Czech Republic would have that, right?
Absolutely.
I always wonder how that happens. Interesting.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to give, Arthur gave you some advice, so maybe to do Arthur some justice, what advice would you give to someone if they wanted to do a lenticular mosaic like this?
In order to really do the lenticular mosaic well, there is math involved in scaling it correctly so that it looks correct. I started off building a smaller mosaic first, just to confirm that the math worked and to actually figure it out. The building of it is a challenge in the fact that you have to skip every other row on each image. So it's hard. The other thing is double check your math before you start construction, and remember that you have to double the size of your image. I originally didn't do that. This was going to be bigger, but because it had to come in a car and travel 700 miles, I had to downsize it a little bit.
We have to do these things. So scale, and plan for transit.
Yes, absolutely. Planning for transport, if you want to bring it to a show, is hard. This is mounted to foam core, and then the foam core is cut in half, and then there's another piece of foam core behind it. It works very well. A lot of other people use bricks and actually expand it out, and if I was to do it again, that's what I would do.
My name is Jessica Farrell with Bricky in Ireland, and I'm exhibiting this model on behalf of my son Foilon Farrell, who built this when he was 12 years old. Unfortunately, he's only 13 now, so he's too young to be allowed to exhibit. But this is his model here, and it's called Marvel versus DC. And his idea behind it was to recreate I suppose the tension between Marvel fans and DC fans. Marvel people say their superheroes are the best, and DC fans say, oh no, the DC characters are the best. And there's been a lot of new superhero movies out that have one hero pitted against another. So he decided to recreate a comic book scene with the background and the foreground looking like the pages of a comic book that have just unfolded and come alive with the sort of boom pow action that you'd see in a comic book. So he's focused a lot on the action and trying to recreate that in a static environment. You can see the Flash coming out of the tree there, and you've got Iron Man and Superman is sort of mid-explosion. And I think that the whole thing was just the action and fun and colour and vibrancy of a comic book scene. I think it's great, and it's been getting a lot of good response. And I think that it's wonderful seeing the children come up and go, oh wow, Marvel versus DC, who's winning?
Yeah, it's definitely a very timely build, like you said, with all of the superhero movies out and everything. So what's the inside like of this? Is there like just kind of Technic structure, or what did you use to keep?
Well, this is entirely my son's own build and his own creation, but he was fortunate enough to have access to my parts collection. The only thing is I'm very stingy on giving him parts, so all of the inside had to be a whole bunch of pieces that I knew I would never use. So it's just a collection of as many different weirdo, unwanted pieces as possible that he was given. And even though that was very frustrating for him, I think he did quite well with it. It's strong enough to be transported with practically no breakage, so happy with that.
Yeah, it's really nice. And was the kind of valley in the middle, was that an original plan design? Did you always want to try to get that kind of divide between the two sides?
He definitely wanted the divide, and he was extremely very determined. He didn't want any of my suggestions or help. A lot of visitors have said that it sort of looks like the unfolding of the comic book, and it does. And he definitely wanted the divide, so the schism between the two sides. And again, it was entirely his own design and the way that it comes from the background as well to show the comic book pages coming alive.
Yeah, well, very cool. I think you did a great job, so thanks for talking us through that. And maybe one day we'll talk to him when he's old enough to come display himself.
I'm sure he'd look forward to that.
I'm Alan T. Hickmon, and I'm up at Brick World Chicago displaying one of my pieces. This is actually one of my favorite pieces, my Thanos. This particular build is part of something bigger, so this is kind of a preview of what's happening. This particular armor on here is built to fit me. Actually, I can wear it, and the other pieces are back home, to put on, but it's for a project that I really can't disclose right now because it's supposed to be a surprise.
Well, you got the great build here so far, so if you want to take us through kind of how you sculpted the bust of Thanos here and how that build came together?
First, I had to really implement my measurements, shoulder-wise. I had to take a lot of time on the hinge, the ball joints, in order to fit, my head and everything. Once I got all of the schematics and everything down from my size, then I was actually able to build, the bust to actually for the armor to fit on. So making the armor was essential first, and then it was easier for me to go on the size and to build Thanos.
Sure. And you've got the great kind of helmet and rounded head there. So what are some of the techniques and pieces used there? Because obviously rounded stuff with Lego is not always the easiest to achieve.
Yeah, that was pretty difficult. To tell you the truth, I consulted one of the guys here, last year's Brickmaster, Nick Jensen. He had told me a little bit on how he did his Halo helmet, and with the information that he gave me, I took that and basically harnessed kind of what he was telling me that would work best. And then after getting pretty much the roundness to where I needed to be. Then it was basically trial and error of knowing what plate was going to fill what spaces in order for, there wouldn't be a lot of gaps in the helmet.
Sure. And I think it turned out nice. Then obviously we can't talk about Thanos without the gauntlet here. So that is very beautiful. All the gold pieces, and you got the fingers down. How did that come together for you?
Oh man, that one really challenged me because I had to make the skeleton first in order to have the fingers actually be able to bend. I can make this glove do a fist, but I'm just leaving it up so where everybody can see the stones exposed. But after spending about a couple of days getting it to the size of my hand, since I've got some pretty big mitts, after getting the skeleton done out of the bionicle pieces, and then it was the plating and getting the necessary brick to actually cover the fingers and make it into the actual gauntlet. And then after that was all done, it was time to gold leaf brush the materials on there. And that was a little nerve-wracking because if you mess up, it's messed up. Right. Yeah, so it was, do a little bit, leave it alone, do it a little bit, leave it alone, do it a little bit, leave it alone until it was done. And then everyone was like, well, how are you going to do the stones since, Lego only makes, small Lego stones. And then, so I was like, you know what? Since Thanos truly is looking for actual gems, let me go get actual gems and incorporate it into the build. So, and they just make the piece pop all together.
Yeah, certainly those different colors look amazing. So, yeah, the whole build turned out great. Instantly recognizable, I think, for sure. Famous character, obviously, so I'm sure a lot of the public going by has been commenting as they recognize it.
It's been pretty awesome.
Hi, I'm Simon. I built the Hinkle hammer. Kevin Hinkle, who is the community engagement,
He's something with the community.
He is Mr. Community. He's about to celebrate his 10th year at LEGO, and he had asked me to build something special for him. So because of that, I built him the Kevin Hinkle Community Band Hammer. So with great responsibility, that squad there is kind of you can actually pick up a full-size Thor hammer.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
It is a bit heavy, and there is, because he worked pretty much 50-50 in as our fantastic Lego rep, but before that, he was the employee. He was a brand retail guy. And then now he is the community guy we all know and love. So the hammer is powered by Kevin. So yeah, this is the Kevin Hinkle.
So it's like a literal representation of how he has worn many hats in the LEGO group.
Exactly. So this will be for Mr. Hinkle.
Okay, what is the structure like in the hammer part there to keep that together?
So a lot of people have asked that. Most people assume it's Technic. It's actually not. It is, if I can get it open, headlight bricks. It is a series of headlight bricks that run entirely throughout the core and more plate across, and it's all wedged together.
And so this is not heavy enough as to kind of make this, so it sort of works out perfectly.
Right, because between the plates, and you can notice there's multi-levels of plate, it's actually quite strong. As you can see, you can hold it by the end. I did consider Technic originally, but I wanted to try this because it would give me a slightly smaller profile so I can round out and do a better sized handle.
Certainly, and also headlight bricks are widely available, whereas Technic beams are not necessarily widely available.
Yes, but at the same time, if you actually do the math, it might actually have been cheaper to use Technic beams because it's 4 headlight bricks times 16. That's a lot of headlight bricks. So it works. I'm happy with it.
And it looks like you've been nominated for Best Sculpture, is that correct?
Yes, against my good friend Adrian Drake, who did the Tesla sign that you profiled in Chicago as well. But yeah, I think it's a fun, friendly rivalry that I will hopefully win.
Certainly. Very nice build, Simon.
Thank you.
Not a chance. Caleb.
Slightly more powerful than I thought, but okay. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
That was
I thought you could like crowd. I didn't think I could like smack you all four. Can you rebuild that?
I don't care. I got to rebuild this. I already built this.